thing they don't tell you about retirement is there's so much time to fill.
Honey, you do not need to get up at the crack of dawn every morning.
Peggy, I didn't retire to sleep my life away like some Nepo baby.
It's Bobby. Yellow, honey. So glad you called. Ooh. Are you eating something? Let me hang up and call back.
Believe it or not, this is actually technically the third time that we'll be talking about the works of Mike Judge, right? You know, great comedy writer and director and voice actor as well, right? Because we also talked about that Beavis and Butthead movie that came out during the pandemic, which I absolutely enjoyed, even though it was just ridiculously dumb fun, but that was the point. Yeah, and then of course, you know, celebrating the 25th anniversary of Office Space, right, which came out in '99, right? Yeah. Solid film, still holds up, right? You know, and there's a lot of great moments in it, right? And I believe, well, I can't remember if we talked about it. I think we did with the Beavis and Butthead one, right? But I know for sure we talked about it with Office Space, right? Yeah, we mentioned King of the Hill, right? Which I would admit is not a show that I absolutely love, right? But it is a show that I admire, I appreciate. I think that it is one of the most solid, one of the most superbly written animated sitcoms I would say ever made, in my opinion, right? Just sharp with the social commentary, with the dialogue and the characterization. I think they nail those three things on point, right? And it just gave us a really, really genuinely likable character in the form of Hank Hill, right? And his wife Peggy, right? You know, I just love how, you know, the show in general just leans so much into Americana, but more from a Texan perspective, right? So it's all about, you know, getting the best grill, you know, hanging out with friends on the weekend, you know, having barbecues and beers and, you know, propane accessories, right? Yeah, so you know, it just sort of revels in more, or I should say, contemporary Americana, right? It's like, yeah, you know, just get the best appliances, the best goods, and you know, you just want to live the best life because you know you feel like you're in the best country in the world, right? But you know, it's just all these hijinks that involve all the characters, and just all their little weird hang-ups and whatnot. You know, even Hank as well, too, right? Because he is far from perfect, right? He is very outdated when it comes to certain ideals, right? It's not like he's a bigot or anything like that, right? It's just like, you know, he is from, you know, an old school, right? You know, he is from, well, let me just say lower than, he's from the baby boomer generation, right? And it's him just getting it, you know, coming to terms with, you know, changing times, right? So that to me was what King of the Hill was about when it was out, like in the 90s, right? So just a few things for you, and then, you know, well, you didn't, well, you only saw the series premiere of this, right? So,
but just getting the general gist of it. I know he moved, he come back. I mean, they do the time skip thing, which I really appreciated. Like, I look, I don't know how I feel about this because I was always halfway on the whole, like, oh, characters just stay in the same age indefinitely stuff, like with Simpsons or South Park or whatever it is, Family Guy. But this I appreciate of just, time moving forward. And you know, them happy to say about the world, you know, that evolved from this time now. Futurama kind of did this, but other shows, I think, this did it the best, I think, in terms of that core conceit.
But yeah, you know, for me, while it is a show that I appreciate and admire, right, it's not a show that I was like religiously, you know, in tune with, right? In the sense, like, like I
only kept up with it because, like, I think what's her name, Brittany Murphy passed away when she died. She was the voice of Luan. So it's stuff like that. Like, it's just, oh right, this thing happened, man, that sucked. But I, in terms of the details of the show or anything like that, I was never like super into it. I just appreciated the show for what it was, and it was funny. Like the little of it I watched. Yeah, it was like legit funny and clever, but I never super get into it. But to be fair, like I haven't kept up with even stuff I like say American Dad or Family Guy or whatever it is when they were on. There's only really one or two shows that I super kept up with. But those were shows not like going on indefinitely, like say BoJack Horseman. I think it's only Rick and Morty. It's the only show I could say I kept up with for the most part. But even that didn't really run on long because if Rick and Morty keep going on long, I'll get fed up with it too. So it's like whatever. But yeah, King of the Hill is something that not boring or anything like that. It's just and this is an adult sensibility. I'll appreciate it when it comes in as a conceit, and I want to see what you're gonna do going forward. But it's genuinely fascinating to see that it get a remake. Well, not a remake, but a reboot or a legacy sequel or whatever it is you want to call it.
Yeah. Well,
As a
technically it's a soft reboot, right? But it is
right,
the official 14th season of it, right? So it's in the
right,
same vein of how like Futurama was, right? Where it wrapped up years ago, and for reasons, Fox just decided, hey, let's just continue on with the show, right? So for me, right, and I know it's the same thing for you as we wrap up the pre-ramble here, right? I caught up with a few seasons when it was on local television, through syndication. That was my introduction to the show, right? Because we never got Beavis and Butthead, right, on local TV, and I didn't have cable at the time, so I would see Beavis and Butthead like years later on, right? But yeah, it was a show that I genuinely admired, right? But I didn't keep up with everything that went on over the last 13 seasons, right? So I just always treated this show like, okay, well, it wrapped up, okay, fine, whatever. But yeah, I think like a few months ago, we just got this announcement that, hey, new season coming up. And then we got the trailer for it, right? Which I did not want to watch because I wanted to go into this as blind as possible, right? It's a good thing I did because I actually appreciate the changes that they did to the show here, right? So you only saw the premiere of this, right? But I will just pretty much give a synopsis into what this season was about, right? So this actually runs 10 years after the end of the last season, right? Which is funny because the show, if I'm not mistaken, wrapped up in 2000. I could be wrong about that. So while it was 15 years it took for the show to be revived now, where the show is set now, it's 10 years from now, right? So yeah, Bobby Hill is 21 now. He actually owns
Wait, what year is it? Was it actual concurrent time of the story?
All right, it's never said, but it is bleakly suggested that this is post-pandemic, post-COVID pandemic, right? So
Right.
I am treating this as this is 2025 that we're in right now,
That's
right?
all right.
Yeah.
All right. In the intro, the guy the black guy was in Hank's house. He had a COVID mask. I remember that. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And they do, and they do make mention of, how times were during the pandemic, right? Back in 2020 and 2021, right? A part of me feels like this show was supposed to come out, or maybe development was going around, was happening, around 2020, and maybe they just had to shut things down because of, obvious reasons now. But at the same time, what I really do admire about this season here is that it doesn't feel like we're being treated to 2020 jokes or 2021 jokes, right? Where it's all about COVID, this, that. No. They move on, right? Yeah, exactly. Right. So yeah, Bobby owns this Japanese. It's technically supposed to be a Japanese restaurant, but he incorporates German, foods and whatnot into it as well, right? So it's a Japanese German restaurant.
Okay, I got. I'm sure you gotta have some Axis joke or something like that with that.
There is a joke. There is an Axis joke. I'm not gonna see which episode, but yeah, there's an Axis joke because somebody kind of make it out like, but wait, no, but we're trying to say it's kind of weird, but it's funny at the same time.
You see that will make King of the Hill kind of brilliant too. Is that there's a earnestness and a cluelessness, especially Peggy. She is let us admit, Peggy kind of dumb, right? But
you like her though. She's so likable, boy. But
that charm, right? They make it work in a charming sense of the word, and it's never mean spirited, at least in that direct conceit of it. They're dumb characters, but they're you can kind of understand how they're dumb, and especially the context of I forget the neighbor's name, this real smart, super successful neighbor, Connie's dad.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, I was forgetting his name right now, but they have a real nice story arc with him too. Yeah.
Right. So the show has always been very earnest and charming. And again, and how to frame American conservatism in a for lack of a better term, honest way. I always appreciate the show for that. It's a smart show in that sense. And yeah, Mike Judge understands Americana. He understands the American workplace. You see that with Office Space and we call it Silicon Valley. But yeah, with this, it's just an interesting conceit, and people get into all kind of debates of would Ting be a Trump supporter, for example, or something like that, and the MAGA movement. But Gail Gribble would he be a Trump supporter? Maybe not. They get into
they kind of hint at it, right? Yeah, they kind of. That's all I'll say. Yeah.
Right. And so on and so forth, right? That's why I appreciate the show and where they're going to go with it, and the nature of it's very surprisingly more mature politics, and even shows that I'm biased towards in terms of its liberal ideas or values. In that sense, though. So I don't I want to see. I didn't watch the show, to be honest, but I want to see where they're gonna go with it. with that. No. So, you had to continue. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's fine, that's fine. Yeah, so, in the meantime now, well, Hank and Peggy, they returned from Saudi Arabia, and, at first when you hear, okay, they went to Saudi Arabia, okay, why, right? And then, well, you realize it makes sense, right? Hank get through with this whole contractual thing involving, of course, propane and propane accessories, right? So it makes sense, right? He was there, and, they retired now, well, so they pretty much returned to Allen, Texas, right? Where they just want to spend the rest of their lives, well, I should say the rest of their retirement, just, back home, right?
Right.
I mean, they're not going to be with his son, of course, because his son grew up and he living in an apartment. He have a roommate now. He's trying to rekindle the flames that he had with his old, let me just say, flame, if you will, Connie, right? But she has a boyfriend, and, there's a nice little story arc surrounding that, right? But yeah, it's just basically about Hank and Peggy just kind of, just returning to the fold, right? This kind of returning home, getting used to how things have changed over the years and whatnot. They have to get used to apps now, reality TV, they're getting used to things, right? But at the same time, they want to hold on to that relationship that they had with Bobby, right? Even though, Bobby is his own man now, and he is handling his own responsibilities, right? They say early on that he never went to college. He just went straight into, the restaurant business, and, he actually is quite successful because he's running this thing on his own, right? He just has his Hispanic assistant to help him out, right?
Right.
And yeah, and of course, the usual group come back, like Boomhauer and Deal returns as well, and yeah, best character ever, boy. That's the conspiracy theories this man's come up with, right? And funny thing, as dated and as stupid as it sounds, he still feels like a relevant character, like you feel like in a post-COVID, and in a Trump society, yes, you would have people just like that who be talking this kind of shit. It makes sense.
I think it have a couple shows that are now feeling kind of like not so much dated as it is dated in a different direction. Like, like the X-Files. The X-Files end up becoming like, oh shit, like it have people way worse than Mulder in terms of the paranoia. Like the paranoia is the dated bullshit. Like, oh, he wasn't paranoid enough. That kind of stuff though. And I can imagine how I like Dale is the most interesting character to work with in that conceit now. I really want to see what they're going to do with him. Yeah, go ahead.
Bill is there as well, right? And where they set up Bill early on was pretty funny, but how let me just say he looks totally different from how we know him, right? But just the mere fact that he goes back to normal, slight spoiler, to do the intro, I was like, okay, that's kind of clever, right? Let's jump into the review here, right? So for me, the best way I could sum this up though is that it just feels like just returning home, boy. Like you just haven't been home for a long period of time, and you come back, it's like, yeah, boy, the familiarity is there. I see my friends again, family and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, things change, right? People doing things a little bit differently now, and that's how this show really feels like, right? But yeah, it really does feel like a return to form. It feels like literally like the show never came off the air, right? Almost like the last 15 years of silence as far as King of the Hill content goes never happened, right? It really does feel like, just like, a new season. That's how it feels like.
Didn't skip a beat.
Didn't skip a beat, right?
I know they changed a couple of voice actors.
And then
recent tragic news, the second voice actor passed away.
That would be
John Redcorn.
Yeah, and an episode, sorry, is dedicated to him, right? I forgot the actor's name right now, but yeah, he passed away, and they did, Jonathan Just, that's his name, right? And yeah, they did a RIP tribute to him, right? Because yeah, John Redcorn actually pops up in a few episodes, right? And I actually forgot that Johnny Hardwick passed away as well too, right? And they did a really nice tribute to him as well, right?
Who they get for the new voice actor for the neighbor boy? Somebody get kind of reasonably popular actor. Got it slipped in my mind right now, but it doesn't news. I think, okay, that kind of charming. Okay, fine.
Right. That'll be which neighbor again? Not Min.
Dad, I think.
Or Connie's father. I think it is the same person, Lauren Tom. I think, I'm reading it up here now. So yeah, she plays Connie and Min, right? As in her father, right? So that was really interesting, right? But yeah, pretty much it's the same actors doing their thing, So we have Mike Judge playing Hank and Jeff Boomhauer. We have Kathy Najimy who plays Peggy. We have Stephen Root who plays Bill, and I think, I'm not sure if they changed no, actually, I think it's the same person, Pamela Adlon, who plays Bobby, right? And yeah, even when you hear Bobby's voice, like, there's a woman do that, right? But
we know, Pamela Adlon. I know the last time she was kind of in trouble, if I remember correctly. She was, Louis C.K. kind of friend, and she kind of defended him, when he was on low points. Like,
okay, I didn't know that.
I know that's the last time I heard of her in Big Thing. But yeah, I know she was the voice, I don't know if it's Pamela Adlon, but it's the same person, but I remember that. Who they get to play a new character in the storyline, boy? Some decent comedy actor. God, slip my mind. That's all right.
I should look it up, right? Also, if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember if this character was there from the old show, right? Yeah, Keith David, Keith David actually shows up as a character as well, right? He plays Brian, right? So he was renting Hank's house, right? When they were in Saudi Arabia. So yeah, he's a regular character that pops up. Well, I should say he pops up ever so often, right? But yeah, he was a great touch of the show, right? But yeah, I mean,
Toby Huss is who I was thinking of. Sorry about that. Cotton. The guy new voice actor for Cotton. I think he died.
Oh, okay. That I didn't know.
And then Khan is Ronnie Cheng. That's the person I was thinking of as well. Ronnie Cheng is on the show.
Okay. All right.
No problem.
Yeah, well, that I didn't know. Yeah, so I didn't know all the full details about the voice actors and whatnot, right? But yeah, it was just great hearing Hank Hill's voice again, right? He does the propane accessories, and he does the vocal bits, the wah or the what in the hell, he does all that, right? Boomhauer for me is my boy Jay, because he just has that thick, indistinguishable accents. He's like, talking about Shane Man, same it just makes for just some hilarious moments, right? But yeah, I mean, Deal is still Deal, Bill is still Bill, Bill is still Bill, sorry, right? And one thing I forget about Bill though, Bill is kind of a cougar hunter guy, like, like the first moment where he like always trying to track some married or divorced woman. I forgot that was his character though. I didn't know it was I forgot it was like that now. But it's still about the core characters, or actually the key characters who really make the show work are Hank and Peggy and of course Bobby, right? And they are still very likable characters, right? Naive when they're ready, right? But I love just how earnest they are presented here, right? And just seeing how they sort of like try to navigate life in their old age is so charming, right? Yes, it does tap into certain beats and whatnot, right? You would have the moment where Hank is trying to figure out an app, or you say, wait, there's an app that does this, so what happened to the supermarket, So it's stuff that you would expect a character like him at his age to react to, right? Stuff that we as Gen Zers have accepted, right? But from him, as far as just from the baby boomer generations, it's like, oh, there's an app who does this and blah blah blah. So some of the jokes are stuff that you would expect, right? But at the same time, there are some rather unexpected stuff, that you wouldn't expect from the show here, right? The writing is still strong, and I really appreciate it for that. Just the spot on dialogue and whatnot, right? For me personally, right, this was never a show that I used to like laugh out loud to, right? It was just so charming. So you just sort of laugh at just how the characters bounce off each other and whatnot, right? But yes, while there aren't a lot of laugh out loud moments, that's not to say that the show isn't funny or, the jokes fall flat, right? I wouldn't say that. I genuinely wouldn't say that, right? Animation still looks the same, I mean? I don't think that, like when it comes to certain updated shows, right, they will sort of tweak certain things, like as far as like the backgrounds or whatnot, right? But for me, I just felt like everything just pretty much looked the same. It still has that same hand-drawn 2D style to it, right? Although I wouldn't be surprised if they incorporate some 3D somewhere, but I didn't see, swear to God, I didn't see any bit of 3D in it, right? Maybe there is, but maybe, I don't know.
Nowadays it's virtually indistinguishable. It's like what black magic is to film. Like if they really want to make it look like the original, you can't tell unless it has like some real like inside baseball animation thing to look for. You wouldn't be able to tell.
Right, right, right. Even just stylistically, it feels like your average episode of King of the Hill, right? Just the way how they will transition, like how they will fade to black, like if there's a commercial, right? But even though it's on Hulu, it still feels like you're watching like a sitcom, you know what I mean? Like with ads and whatnot, right? Just how they redid the intro was really solid for me. And listen, I'm not even gonna stop to study frame by frame in terms of what's going on, right? What I mean is, right? It's not like how in the last, like in the original run of the show, right? You were just seeing like probably I'm assuming like a few days where you see Hank and his friends just standing up by the picket fence drinking beers, right? I think like it just used to run for about a week, if I'm not mistaken, right? But this one, it's spanning years, right? So it starts off with, see, Bobby and Connie as kids, and then you see time progress, and then of course, COVID happened, and there's a nice little visual cue that, yes, everybody's home, everybody had to stay inside because of reasons. So I like how they do that, and then it just sort of starts back where, it just sort of continues on from there. So that was really cool as well, right? And it was just really cool hearing the theme song again. I think if I'm not mistaken, they redid it for the intro. I know for the outro, they got a next band to do the same song. But I have a feeling the intro was redone. And yeah, actually not surprised that they actually did it, right? And then lastly, as far as the storytelling, still solid as well too. I just love just seeing the progression of the characters, right? In particular, I felt like the one that really, worked for me the most was Bobby's arc, right? Where he still has feelings for Connie, but Connie is with somebody else. And then you see how that plays out as well. Him building his confidence because, yes, he still feels a kind of way that he risked it all to have a successful business and he's succeeding, but he feels like it's at the expense of his social life. And you see how that plays out in relation to his feelings that he has towards Connie. And those moments really worked for me, right? And then, Hank and Peggy, they just do what they do, right? They retired, but at the same time, they're kind of bored. They're trying to figure out what to do, what the next venture is, if they should start a business or if they should get a next job and all that kind of stuff, right? It's the kind of stuff that you would expect their characters to feel and think about at their age, and it absolutely works, right? Then, of course, the side characters are just there to just make things fun and crazy and whatnot, right? But yeah, at the end of the day, I can't be mad at this, right? While I am still not the biggest fan of the show, just the mere fact that the creators involved, right, Mike Judge and his team, somehow figured out to make the show feel like, like it hasn't lost a step, right? Like it's still continuing on, and the last 15 years of silence didn't happen, right? Is kind of amazing too, right? It still and at the same time, I should say, it still feels relevant, and that's the thing that really really surprised me. It feels relevant. It doesn't feel like a product of its time. Okay, we're gonna take something from the mid to late 90s and try to make it fresh and relevant. No, I felt like they really made a considerable effort to make this thing feel like, yeah, like it's 2025. King of the Hill still exists. And it's still working, right. They still coming through with the stellar, storytelling and characterization, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it still feels fresh. It still feels relevant. And that's kind of amazing. That really is kind of amazing, right? So for me, I will give this, I like the decent 4 out of 5, man. I really enjoyed it though. Like, yeah, but I'll close this, right? So I haven't watched the new seasons, right, of Futurama, so I can't see if Futurama now needs to exist. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't care for the very recent stuff, like really, really recent stuff. Didn't care for it. Like it wasn't working like that. They probably shouldn't have done that, but whatever. Like it's fine.
Okay, yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah, so okay. To be fair, I haven't watched all of it, so like I don't know if it gets better or anything like that. But the little I watched, I was like, yeah, this is not even like close to what I would love about Futurama or why Futurama worked now. For me, at least personally. Even though I was a fan of like some of the other reboots and like, the movies and things. Even though those wasn't great, they just kind of mostly kind of fell flat. They were okay. This was just like, you serious? Like, okay. It really, really fell flat at the time they brought it back. But, watch it yourself. I know whatever. I generally negative from me. But to be fair, I didn't watch the whole thing, the whole new season. It was like comparable to the medieval show now, which I know a lot of people like.
Still haven't watched that,
Yeah. And that mostly fell flat for me too. So it's like, whatever.
Yeah. So I could, even though I haven't watched those new seasons of Futurama, I know that this actually does that whole reboot nostalgia, but very. Cause I don't know if Futurama is heavy on the nostalgia, like heavy on, okay, we're just gonna remind you just how great the show was kind of vibe. But this one, I think it's because of how simple just how casual and just laid back and simple the style of the show is. Yeah, like it doesn't need to try too hard to be relevant. It just sort of figures out in its own specific way to just make the story feel fresh, right? And that's what it does, right? But is that same style that it has been from the beginning? So if that's not your cup of tea and you just want more hijinks and more humor and whatnot, then you're not going to enjoy this, right? But I would say that if you are a diehard fan of the show, you will love this season. If you admire the show from back in the days, you will enjoy the season as well, right? Okay, so I guess at the end of the day, it's just really a matter of if you appreciate the show or not. If you don't, then you won't care for this at all, and you might just find, oh, it's just Fox trying to revive an old show that nobody cares about anymore. But I would make the argument that no, this really feels like a nice progression in terms of just the overall series, right? And yeah, that is again nothing short of amazing, right? So yeah, that's how I feel about this show here. So yeah, Ricardo, when you get a chance, check it out. I will close this. I honestly don't see this being in my top 10 though, but I could see it as an honorable mention. I don't want 2025 to end and I forgot that this show even came out, or I should say the season even came out, right? As for the future of this show, I really, really don't know it, because remember, this is season 14 we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, so whatever they're doing.
Yeah, I don't see them going to like, a season 20 or God forbid, whatever season Simpsons is in right now, right? Because I mean, Mike and, his voice acting team, yeah, I mean, they ain't getting any younger, right? I mean, we done lost 2 members of that group, unfortunately. So yeah, I think that it's gonna go just, for a few more seasons, and then they're just probably gonna close things off on hopefully a really, really strong note, right? But yeah, King of the Hill is back. King of the Hill is back, and I cannot be mad at that. I cannot be mad at that at all.
Yeah, I would say I don't mind stuff like this. You see, when you talk, like if you have a sense of progress with your narrative and you build in that way, that I don't have a problem with at all. Like I really don't have a problem with that if you're doing that conceit as it is. But you see this whole just the same thing, kind of similar jokes over and over kind of stuff, like with Simpsons and them. And like, I'm sure I have people out there will defend Simpsons and tell, no, Simpsons actually really progressing and they think. But I don't know, Simpsons just really feel like it overdoing it and running into place as it is. But this I don't mind. Like I can live with this. It'll feel. My main thing is just it don't have to feel unctuous. If the character's progressive, life going on, I can live with that. That's fine. But so yeah, I appreciate that this exists. I'll make the effort. To watch this.